Africa Rising. How 900 million African consumers offer more than you think. By Vijay Mahajan. Inspiration is all around you. In 2006, Zimbabwe's economy was, as it remains, in a desperate state. Harmful domestic policies and Western sanctions had led to hyperinflation, mass unemployment and usurious interest rates. Tourists stayed away, so the souvenir and car rental places at the airport were closed and the taxi drivers were out of work. The message on a billboard, "Inspiration is all around you," clashed with this reality. Few places could be less inspiring. Yet, even then, some companies prospered and they continue to do so. Inscore began as a fast food chain in Harare in 1987 and became profitable within the first 6 months. Expanded and diversified, Inscore now owns a number of restaurants that cater to different segments of society, and has shops in more than 12 countries in Africa. In 2007, 19 of Southern Africa's 50 leading companies outside South Africa were Zimbabwean. If a country like Zimbabwe yields businesses like this, imagine what opportunities must exist in more stable, less scarred countries. Africa 1, 2, and 3. The African market falls into roughly 3 segments. 1. Africa 1, this group of 50 to 150 million people, 5% to 15% of Africa's population, is its upper class. This obvious market is already on companies' radars. 2. Africa 2, some 350 to 500 million people belong to Africa's middle or sub-middle class. This 35% to 50% of the population is becoming richer and more powerful. 3. Africa 3, with 500 to 600 million people, this 50% to 60% of the population is Africa's poorest group. Many companies have recognized the potential of Africa 2 and have designed products for it. Egypt's Manso Group, for example, first targeted Africa 1. When it couldn't grow any more in that market, it opened a discount store offering local produce that successfully attracted Africa 2 consumers. Capturing Africa 3 business calls for an innovative approach. These people live on minimal budgets. How can you get them to spend their meager resources on your product? Tiny portions and low prices are pivotal. Nestlé offers bottles holding just a few sips of clean water for about 13 cents, still more costly than the bagged water the locals sell. Procter & Gamble sells mini portions of detergent and soap. Creating infrastructure. The African market is informal and disorganized, but successful companies there have created opportunities by solving structural problems themselves, rather than waiting for the market to get ready. Firms such as Coca-Cola, Guinness and Gillette use bicycles, pushcarts and even donkeys to take their products into rural areas. Don't impose a new infrastructure on an existing system when you want to market your goods. Instead, find out what works already and shape your business accordingly. In Morocco, most people buy at local mom-and-pop stores. Shop owners often allow customers they know personally to pay later. One entrepreneur opened a retail chain that prospered by emulating that system. Electrical power remains a challenge in Africa. During the frequent blackouts, many companies use their own generators to provide electricity. One executive even installed an inverter on his computer to bridge the brief moment between the outage and the start of the generator, so his computer would keep running during a power failure. People have organized large and small projects to solve the problem of unreliable electricity. The Grand Inga Dam, proposed for the Congo River, would be the world's biggest hydroelectric dam. In contrast, little villages install solar panels, share generators or even produce their own green energy from jatropha oil. TechnoServe, a non-governmental organization, NGO, found a way to make energy while processing coffee. Similar creativity stretches to other problem areas, such as the water supply. The Roundabout organization has built a water pump that works like a playground merry-go-round. Children pump water as they play. Whether poor or rich, people still need to communicate. The communication industry is booming in Africa. The cell phone market is developing at the fastest speed in the world. Even people who don't have cell phones buy SIM cards and use them in friends' phones. One mobile company in Senegal has been so successful that its managers were embarrassed to publish their figures in a country that is so poor. Mohammed Ibrahim founded Keltel in 1989. It is now a major African phone company active in 15 countries. When he began, Ibrahim had to build his power and communication infrastructure from scratch. Unable to find a bank to invest in his enterprise, he repeatedly provided equity funding to build the company. In 2006, he sold it to MTC Kuwait for $3.4 billion. Ibrahim puts the money he makes back into projects that benefit people. He sponsors a $200 million fund that supports African entrepreneurs. "This is money I made in Africa," he says, and it is really their money. People in some rural areas of Kenya benefit from Keltel in a different way. They pirate the power it generates for its cell towers. Why does Keltel allow that? For one thing, its managers believe in supporting village populations and, for another, having access to Keltel's electricity gives the villagers an incentive to keep its towers intact. The impact of cell phones on economic development in Africa far exceeds their importance on other continents. The arrival of this technology opened opportunities for small businesses in areas where people never had landlines. It even spawned entire industries. Many more people have cell phones than bank accounts, so it is no wonder that Africa has pioneered the use of cell phones for banking transactions. In fact, prepaid minutes have become a form of currency. Rather than shifting money from one account to another, people transfer prepaid minutes. The entertainment sector also is exploring ways to reach a broader audience through cell phones. DStv Mobile wants to broadcast the 2010 Soccer World Cup via cell phones. In Nigeria, people already can subscribe to a service that lets them watch the news on their phones. Cell phones have also changed healthcare. A system designed by the US company Voxiva connects clinics, doctors, and patients in Rwanda by cell phone, thus allowing better healthcare in rural areas. African youth. In Africa, approximately 41% of the population is 14 years old or younger. Compare that to 14% in Japan. In contrast, in 2007, only 3% of the people were over 65 years old. This imbalance leads to opportunities for youth or child-related products, such as diapers, toys, and school uniforms. Soft drink manufacturers and other companies use music and sports, the global lingua franca among the young, to reach kids with their branding messages. However, the age imbalance also poses possible threats. Studies show that civil wars and dictatorships are much more likely in countries with excess youth. 80% of the civil conflicts that broke out in the 1970s, 80s and 90s occurred in countries where at least 60% of the population was under 30. Nonetheless, young Africans are among the world's most optimistic youth. Ghanaian economist George Ayittey says the cheetah generation, as opposed to the parent, or hippo, generation, is forward-looking, well-connected and confident. Its members want democracy, transparency, and an end to corruption. The energy they radiate is almost palpable, says Keltel founder Ibrahim. African children's educational aspirations motivated US TV star Oprah Winfrey to spend $40 million to create a girls' school in Africa. As she explains, in South Africa, kids don't ask for money or toys. They ask for uniforms so they can go to school. Development in Africa may evolve from this spirit. A lot of initiatives focus on the education of young children. Nicholas Negroponte, chairman emeritus of MIT's Media Lab, launched the One Laptop Per Child initiative to create inexpensive computers to donate to kids worldwide. Similarly, Intel built cheap classmate computers for African schools. In classes that used them, testing showed a 25% spike in students' performance. Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood. When Kenneth Nebu imported empty video cassettes to Nigeria, he had no idea that he would spawn the development of the world's third-largest, by earnings, movie-making industry. Assuming he could charge more for the tapes if they weren't empty, he produced a cheap film about a man who killed his wife in a cult ritual. The film was an immediate success and inspired copycats, a lot of them. Today, Nigeria's Nollywood produces 2,000 notoriously cheap movies annually, more than either the US's Hollywood or India's Bollywood. The diaspora. Many Africans have left the continent to get educated or employed elsewhere. More people from Cape Verde, for example, live outside the country than within it. Sub-Saharan African expatriates transfer large sums of money back to their home countries. In Somalia, the money that expats sent back home in 2005 was responsible for 25% of the country's GDP. Companies tap this market by offering convenient ways to transfer money. One company, Sadza, has a website that allows expats to send groceries or medication instead of money, thereby circumventing the currency risk. Returning expats also boost the tourism industry. Some come back to stay, bringing home expertise and the motivation to create change. As that happens, Africa is actually experiencing a brain gain. Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a Zulu term. According to Bishop Desmond Tutu, it translates to, "I am because you are." This concept is at the core of opportunities in Africa. Whether you are setting up an NGO or a business, you need respect for the people and a thorough understanding of the community. No company can ignore the struggle that its African employees and prospective customers face. Corporate social responsibility is a business necessity. Corporate leaders work to address these and other common problems many different ways. HIV/AIDS. 3/4 of the families participating in a market research survey in one area included children left parentless by the disease. Coca-Cola engages in several anti-AIDS campaigns, distributing condoms and medication. Drinking water. More than 300 million people in sub-Saharan Africa are without access to clean drinking water. Procter & Gamble has supplied purifiers as part of a clean water campaign. Disease is some 3,000 children age 5 or younger die every day from malaria in Africa. Novartis has offered malaria medication, virtually at cost, to the World Health Organization and the Global Fund for distribution to poor people. It also printed comics and other reading material to inform people about infection risks and treatments. Trade not aid. Many economists and politicians remain skeptical about the effectiveness of development aid. Some claim that certain aid programs didn't only fail to have a positive effect, but actually had a negative impact on the country's development. Western charity reinforces the image of Africa as a problem-stricken continent. Africa is seen as a passive beggar rather than as an active agent of change. NGOs have a responsibility to promote entrepreneurship and self-driven development. Microlending can make a huge difference in developing areas. Although some areas still have a desperate need for help, the most important source of change is within Africa itself.